Welcome, hello, and welcome everyone to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nicholas Razo, and without further ado, we shall introduce to you our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez Rey. Give it up for the Hispanic Patriots, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Back among the living.
Speak for yourself, Hugo. I'm still a little sick.
I gave the virus over the air to Nick.
He did. It's true. But we are still here for you guys. Rain, shine, no matter what. Health, sickness, poverty, whatever we got for you guys. But here, you'll get your prosperity of information.
You're probably wondering why we're on a half hour early, and that's because I have an executive committee meeting at 7, so I have to leave in a dash out of here.
Orale, big important man over here. He's got to leave early.
30. No, that's why
we appreciate the work you do, Hugo.
Early tonight, and that's for the time being. That's going to be once a month. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm still trying to get them to change the day of the meeting. That would
gotta respect Hispanic Patriot now.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a special guest tonight. One of the candidates for the Colorado GOP chair, and that would be Rosie Saine. So she'll be on with us in just a few minutes. In the meantime, we can talk a little bit about a couple of quick issues that are burning in our minds here. One of them is the worst gun ban that passed the Colorado Senate.
This one's pretty bad, folks. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, they might as well just say, turn your guns in, because that's basically what it's all about. But guess what? Real Americans that follow the Second Amendment have pledged to not comply. And I'm among those. I will not comply. So,
man, good for you, Hugo. And honestly, I would agree with anyone who wants to do that.
They can pass all the laws they want. They're unconstitutional. I'm not complying.
Make sure, folks, know who your sheriff is. That's the best way you can protect yourself in situations like this. Know who your sheriff is. Know if these laws are going to be complied with, these unconstitutional laws. Make sure that you live somewhere where you have a sheriff who understands the Constitution. We're lucky in El Paso that we have that.
Call your local sheriff and ask him point blank. Are you going to enforce this unconstitutional law? And
maybe if enough people ask, maybe that'll turn into, well, I don't think so. That's the power you have.
There's already quite a few that have said they won't be enforcing this law. So
yep, that's the power of the people. That's democracy, real democracy in a democratic republic. Emphasis on the republic part.
But yeah, it's a complete gun grab and gun registration tactic, and we all know what happens after gun registration, and that's confiscation.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the United States of America. We're not in Australia. We're not in the UK. We're not in any
Thank God for that.
Other countries, and it'll be a cold day in hell before they take our guns away here. So,
as they say, from our cold, dead hands, but luckily, again, this is the land of liberty, so our hands will be quite warm and quite at attention and at the ready.
Yep. So pay attention in Colorado to Senate Bill 25-003. If the governor has the guts to sign that into law, that remains to be seen. He has aspirations to run for national office as president, so perhaps that weighs heavily on his mind. However, the Democrats do have enough votes to override a veto should he decide to veto it. So it may be where he makes a deal with the devil, the Democrat legislature, and he says, I'm going to veto this because I know you can override it. So I'll look good and say that I vetoed it, and you can still pass your law.
The point is there are steps we still have, folks, and we need to fight in them. You never give up any step of the way.
Yeah, and I think it's going to fall, obviously, in the courts. Definitely, if it gets to the Supreme Court, they'll slap this down so fast that it'll make their head spin. But that's just the way it is here in Colorado. They're a bunch of gun grabbing libs, and they think that they can fool the public into, oh, it's protect the public, it's to protect the children. It doesn't protect anybody.
No, it doesn't protect
except
anyone.
The criminals.
And it destroys our culture. Let's be honest about this, and that'll be the last point I make. It destroys our culture. We have an American culture. We were a frontier culture. Guns were the thing that helped make our country, and we have so many military in this state. So we are the center of the military. We have NORAD. We have everything here. You take away the guns. You take away the culture. You take away the fact that you can defend yourself against mountain lions and wolves that they are introducing. You destroy what Colorado is. So if Democrat politicians want to destroy the soul of Colorado, this is how they want to do it. Republicans are fighting back for the soul of this state.
All right. So looks like we have our guest in the waiting room. So we're going to proceed to our interview with Colorado GOP chair candidate Rosie Saine. Take it away, Nick.
Everyone. Well, folks, I want you to give a very strong Hispanic Patriot welcome to Miss Rosie Saine here. Rosie Saine served in Colorado legislature and as county commissioner representing Weld County, a top national producer of agricultural products, oil and gas, and renewable energy. Saine served in the legislature, the leadership position as the Republican House Caucus Chair, the ALEC Board member, chair of the American City County Exchange, and as the Legislative Audit Committee Chair. Saine received the Cut House Champion Award and an A+ on the Principles of Liberty Scorecard. CHEC Statesman of the Year Award, Friend of Motherhood by the Patriot League, and American Conservative Union Champion. That is quite a lot. Miss Rosie Saine, welcome to the program.
All right. Hello, Lori.
That was quite an announcement. Thank you.
There's a lot to announce, ma'am.
How are you?
Raining or something. Ding,
how's life treating you out on the campaign trail?
Oh, it's very good. I just love meeting some of our Republican folks across Colorado and getting to hear their perspective on things and what they need. So that's the great part about running for state GOP chair is just listening to our folks, our patriots that are out there that are committed to volunteering their hours or time, treasure to get more Republicans elected and turn the state around. And I think they're excited about our message. They're excited about what we have to give to them, including some toolkits that have been missing for some time to build up the grassroots from the bottom up, the precinct committee people. So I think it's an exciting time for a party.
All right.
We'd agree with that, ma'am.
We've seen the field grow exponentially here over the last couple of weeks. I lost count how many we have already in the race.
Hands right now.
But I remember opining about this because I'm a veteran of these election wars, and I know for a fact that every time we have an election for chair, we end up with 10 to 15 candidates. I don't know how many we're at now, but we're getting pretty close.
It's like we're halfway there.
Yep. So we want to open up with an introduction by yourself to our audience and give a little brief background of why you want this thankless job.
Well, that's actually a good point. It's a position of self-sacrifice, and it's going to have to take a leader who does self-sacrifice to run into a building that's being torched actively while you're trying to rebuild it. And so, I've been telling people I think unity is a broken word because it's often used by the other side that basically to sit down, shut up, go along, get along, and it's not usually a principled position. So the best you can do and what I found works the best is you just keep doing great things and keep putting that vision out there and have people follow you on that vision to rebuild the party and to get the message out there about the great things that President Trump is doing. He is doing so many positive things, and these polls are pretty consistent that working class families trust the Republican Party more than the Democrat Party to represent their interests, and we will not let them down. So I think messaging, repeating what Trump is doing and repeating that in the Colorado way, sometimes in a compassionate way to the people on the ground to join us, but also saying what we are for sometimes and not what we are against. I mean, for example, we are against illegal immigration because we are the party of law, but we are for oil and gas jobs. And the roughnecks of 2025 look very different than the roughnecks of even 2010. It's mostly Hispanics with these really amazing jobs. They pay very well, and they are American patriots.
Yeah, and you're from Weld County, so Weld has been in the news lately, and you're sort of a standout in the county based on what I've seen take place there here recently, and of course you've got the crowd that tried to oust our chair last year that has been cheering them on from the sidelines and showing up at these meetings and putting out false information about what the whole thing was really about, and more importantly, they just flat out lie about the so-called unprecedented action by the state GOP.
We in El Paso County know that.
Yes, I bet you do.
How quickly they forget what KBB did to Vicky Tompkins just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the exact same thing. There was a problem with the way the meeting was conducted.
Yes.
The state executive committee properly called for a new meeting, and then KBB went in there and chaired the meeting, trying to change the results. Well, it backfired because in El Paso County, there are patriots who stood up and said, "No, we'll redo the meeting, but we'll vote and pick who we want." So the peak Republicans down there, run by her daddy, are the ones that ran that little scam down there. So these people are just disingenuous. But you weren't at the meeting last Saturday, right?
No, I wasn't a PCP, so I was not allowed to attend because they didn't allow proxies or anything else. So, but I will say this.
Why didn't you go as a candidate for chair?
Actually, I was unavailable that Saturday anyway when they changed the date. So, a little unfortunate, but
you did save yourself some torture, though.
I had a feeling also that how the vote was going to come out because, again, back to Weld County, they also ran a lot of the money out there to also oust Dave Williams. So it wasn't just cheering from the sidelines; it was actively raising money.
Yep.
And part of the issue with Weld County is, and what I'll get into a little bit with the plan is, we had a very effective volunteer base that was doing a great job in getting more people to the party, getting them excited, raising money, all those things we say we like to do.
Yeah.
And then those same people got tortured to death by the same people who tried to oust Dave Williams. And I've watched this. I've watched people get accused by Barb Kirkmeyer, that they did something wrong, and she sent them to the Secretary of State. And I sat on that legislative committee to look at those results. There were people who did something wrong, but it wasn't the people she pointed out. And she basically the people in that party wore out the people who are doing the good things, and we need to stop doing that. So, and for example, the quality of the people they turned down, not just once, not twice, but 4 times. 4 times, these people sat on town councils. They run homeschools, large homeschools, to keep our children out of public schools. So we're trying to transgender them. Against volunteers that spent hundreds of hours walking for Ryan Armagost, myself, and Perry Buck. Mother of a disabled kid, and she still spent those hours and hours and hours knocking on doors. Yeah. We have former PCPs and district captains who worked for the party for decades, and these people were turned down and rejected. So if Weld County doesn't want more volunteers, that is not a Republican principle. And I talked to Larimer County, they would certainly take some of those volunteers a heartbeat. So Boulder County, by the way.
I have further opinions on that, but I don't want to take away from the time for your interview. So
I understand.
One of the things that I wanted to for you to share with the public, and that is, what are your qualifications for the position of chair of the GOP, Colorado GOP, and what distinguishes you from the other candidates?
Well, one thing is, and I tell people this always, a candidate can say anything they want, but will they actually do it? And the only way you can really check is to see, how they voted. So I'm one of the few candidates that actually have a voting record, and I have an excellent one. So Principles of Liberty operated through, I believe, 2018, and I had an A+ almost every single year on Principles of Liberty that rates us how we voted on the planks of our party platform. Things like limited government and free markets and individual responsibility and fiscal responsibility and equal rule under law, all those things we say we believe in. It's very libertarian, by the way, so I'm your more libertarian candidate. Also, any pledges that candidate takes. And so I led the field in putting out a pledge on my website, which is my pledge to you. This is how I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm going to honor the work David's done with the opt-out and close the primary, but also I'm going to do these things to run this party more like a business, right? We're going to give more power to the board of directors to direct the CEO, which is the chair. We're going to do a full audit, not a compilation audit, not a review audit, but a full audit. We're going to do quarterly reports. The party transparency is party efficiency, right? So we're going to minimize some of those internal struggles by being more transparent. So just basic things that we may have cut some corners on, but again, I understand that the party's been attacked ruthlessly. So it's hard to do things when you're constantly defending yourself, including your basic job of helping candidates. And if the other side is bleeding us with money, real hard to give money to those county parties that really desperately need it. And we flipped a couple seats that we didn't think we were going to flip in county commissioners in some of these mountainous counties, by the way. There's a couple that were on the cusp, and we could have helped with that, except for.
Yeah. Nick?
Well, ma'am, I think you said it perfectly. It's like trying to put out fire in a house that you're living in. So, very well said. But we do have a question here. So it has been said that this is a very contentious party race. But what are your top 3 priorities if elected? And could you give a brief explanation on those?
Absolutely. And probably one of the top priorities, quite honestly, just because of what we've seen in our own party and how much worse our party has become since the open primary, is consistently fund the close the primary lawsuit. We need to do that. We need to win that lawsuit. It's very important. But in the meantime, what we have been tasked with by the SEC is to perform the opt-out. And as Republicans, we can do this. We can bring more Republicans to our party if we bring the Republican Party back to Republicans and to Republican values. So that's the top priority. Obviously, basic blocking and tackling like fundraising. We're going to have to do that at the grassroots level because I have seen and I have witnessed some of the other side trying to block us from raising funds or making it very difficult at our events to raise funds. So we're going to have to do some real basic grassroots fundraising. And third, we need to organize, again, our PCPs and give our counties those toolkits so that they can also apply the basic principles of getting their PCPs out talking to targeted voters. Targeted voters would be those unaffiliated who should be joining our party, or getting some of these Republicans back who don't vote all the time or need to be rejoining the party as volunteers. That is crucial. That is essential. I don't care how fancy any candidate's plan is. If you aren't starting there first and haven't actually had experience doing it, I do. I've seen it work. Those plans are going to fall completely flat. Your volunteers are the most important part of your party, and the PCBs start everything at that precinct committee level.
Well, I see absolutely, ma'am, what you mean by a business-oriented view of it, because I think that's what you definitely stand yourself out through. So I want one question is, what in your business experience do you bring to politics? And perhaps the other way around, how do these two things, business and politics, work together for your strategy?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So when I say run it more like a business, a party will never be a business just because of the unique nature of what it is.
We don't make profit in that sense.
Right. So yeah, but you can make it function more like one with better, like say better communication. So one of the things I've heard that we can do better, regardless if it's at the county party level or at the state level, is find more than one way to communicate. So I've noticed, and I've been calling and checking, have my emails gotten through to you? A lot of times they don't. They go to spam filters. So also texting. Texting is actually not that expensive to do, especially with an SEC blog. Sending out snail mail. A lot of people do pick up mail. So if we have important events, like what's coming up on the reorg, we can spend a little bit of money to do some snail. right? And then email is probably the worst track history of actually getting open.
It's true.
So finding 3 ways to communicate with people about important events will also reduce strife, and it is more businesslike.
Very nice. Back to you,
Yeah.
Hugo.
Well, as we all know, there's 2 prominent lawsuits. You just touched base on one of them with regards to the open primary. And, what do you say to those people who say that closing the open primary or fighting against that is going to somehow disenfranchise, first of all, unaffiliated, which personally I couldn't care less. They're not affiliated, so they shouldn't even be considered.
I didn't hear that.
But the other, in my opinion, is they say, oh, you're going to disenfranchise 1 million Republican voters. And to that I retort, show me the last time 1 million voters voted in a primary, number one.
Yeah.
It's usually less than 50,000, if that. Primaries are very, very poorly voted upon.
Mhm.
And I've never understood that, because the same people who cry that they don't have a voice are the same people who won't get up and vote in a state where we have mail-in ballots, for God's sake. I mean, how difficult is it to fill out a ballot and drop it in a box or drop it in the mail? That just, to me, that smacks of hypocrisy, and the people that cry that don't understand the process. So,
Well, Hugo, if I might wait, one quick joke. What about those poor students in Democrat-run schools who can't read? I apologize. I have to give a quick joke in.
It's called government schools, yes.
Exactly.
Well, here's what I'd say is that independents have already opted out of the Republican Party, correct? And we have always had, I think you can switch your affiliation immediately in the state of Colorado. So if they do want to vote in the Republican primary, they can do it almost instantaneously. So that option has always been for them, regardless of what area we've been in. So I don't think we're disenfranchising anyone in that sense. And also, we can point to, and I will use this as a barometer. We elect 25% of our legislature right now by vacancy committees, which is less than 100 people in most instances. A quarter of our legislature in the last 2 years. And again, the open primary has not only made the Republican Party farther from the people, it's made the Democrat Party worse and even more liberal and far removed from people. So it's had an effect on our state, and we're bearing the brunt and the costs of it. So I suspect if we close our primary and people start playing in the Democrats' primary, I'm willing to bet they might close theirs too.
Well, I've heard through the grapevine that the Democrat Party doesn't like the open primaries anymore than we do. But they keep their mouth shut because they see that it's hurt Republicans. So this has been documented since the open primaries began. We've seen a steady decline. We've seen a propensity to select really bad candidates in our primaries because they're not really Republicans. I mean, just look at the last midterm and even in 2020, we had people like O'Day and Anderson and who are not really Republicans, but that's
who largely went on to lose their generals.
Yeah, they go around the system and people lose respect. I mean, I've got a Republican senator who tried to get rid of the caucus in legislation. And she's
that's a debate. That is
in Weld County from accepting 40 volunteers.
There's 2 schools of thought now about the caucus. Okay, I don't mind the caucus, but we have got to do something to increase participation and help the public understand what it is, because you ask the average person on the street, are you going to caucus? They look at you like you're from Mars. What is caucus?
So back to
I know that because I'm a PCP. I'm a PCP, and I go to knock on doors in my precinct.
There you go.
And I try to encourage people to attend, but they don't understand what it is, what it does, why they should spend their time to go and voice their opinions. I said, well, that's the beginning of your voice. But, I'm one that says either we fix the caucus or we get rid of it. Okay.
Well, that
We're
goes
only
to a
one
great
of eight,
point.
7 or 8 states that even have a caucus. So there's an argument for both sides, but if we're going to keep it, then by God, let's do a better job at getting participation and helping people understand why they should participate. If we're not going to do that, then I would side with the people that say, let's get rid of the caucus.
Well, that goes to a great point that Lori made, actually, I think, and this is a question I wanted to ask you, actually. So we talk about the volunteers being the blood life of the party, and I would absolutely agree with that. But how do we, and to Hugo's point, get volunteers who have shown leadership acumen, who maybe want to be PCPs or even candidates or party officers or whatever have you, given things like we saw, not just in Weld County, but in other places that don't get anywhere near as much attention? How do we not only bring people to be volunteers, but how do we uplift the volunteers who show excellence to leadership positions in the party? And do we think we're doing a good job of that right now?
Yeah, I would say that we've been very faulty for the entire time I've known the Republican Party, for the most part. Dave's been the closest one to actually turn the Republican Party back to Republicans, and again, that's an essential thing. So, my first experience with the Republican State Party was Ryan Call sending mailers against me in my first primary, with his name on it and his signature. So Dave has actually made it transparent about they've always picked somebody in the primary and helped them. Dave just took that to a transparent level. I am proposing my pledge, though, to be primary neutral. I think if you institute the opt-out and close the primary, it takes care of itself, because Republicans, given the option, almost always pick the conservative Republican.
Very nice.
That took one of the other questions, but so you're saying here that you're against endorsing in primaries?
I'm going to say that was a friction point that I think we could have avoided. The other thing I'm going to do is a political conflict of interest. I'm going to sign that saying I'm not going to run for any other position while I am the chair. It will be my focus to be the chair. But as far as the difference between me and another opponent is, I've actually submitted an amendment to the body for March 29th. Mine's different because it does allow for us to endorse. If a J.D. Vance comes forward in the next 4 years, it says we as a body have the option to endorse that candidate. But Colorado candidates would be off limits. And again, I'm just going to point back to, if we have an opt-out that's successful and functional, or a closed primary, again, that issue will resolve itself.
So if I might just ask one question to understand. So from your position is basically that your positions on the open primary and general organization within the party should make the need for a state party to help Republicans understand who the real Republicans are. We wouldn't need that anymore. Is that okay?
That would be my position, and so I think it'll be unnecessary.
Just wanted to clarify that for our audience. Fantastic.
Well, something linked to that, though, for me, this is my own personal viewpoint, and that is the petitioning process.
Yeah.
To me, if a candidate is a Republican and believes in the platform and believes in the system, I feel like they should present themselves to the body and put their chips there, rather than those with deep pockets just basically buying their way onto the ballot. I've never liked that. I know it's part of the law or whatever, but if it was up to me, I would eliminate the petitioning process and force candidates to go through the party procedure to be selected as a candidate to be on the ballot. And if done properly, more than one person can get on the ballot for the primary if they meet the thresholds required. But to me, if someone can't even convince a group of Republicans at an assembly that they're the best candidate, how do they expect to convince statewide people that they're going to be the best candidate for that position?
Okay.
See,
well, just to be clear and make sure people understand, if we do win this close the primary lawsuit, it brings us back to 2016, basically, and you would still have petitions open at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't close the petition link.
But the opt-out could be
I
very
call it the loophole.
yeah, the opt-out could be very different. And if the counties decide, no, we want petitions, we'll listen. But, I think there's a way to make it obvious that they've gone through caucus. There's about 4 or 5 plans floating out there right now. So one of the things I've already done as chair, chair candidate, I've already been talking with 7 county chairs about this, about what their vision would be for the opt-out process. And the more people talk through it, the more excited they get. Because this is very doable, and it could be done for a very low cost. And again, it would be back to basics as far as Republicans picking Republican candidates. So I think there's ways to do this, and maybe they'll decide, absolutely no, we're not going to allow any petitions whatsoever to go around this process. I suspect that's the case, by the way. But again, returning the Republican Party primary process back to Republicans is going to solve a lot of issues.
But doesn't that require, in order to eliminate the petitioning process, doesn't that require a change in state law?
Well, I believe as of right now, it's up to us in the opt-out process. Now, again, if we win the lawsuit and go back to the 2016 model, petitions would be allowed. That's clear.
So from what I understand, it kind of sounds like, as we say in the Hispanic community, paso a paso, step by step. You have your central sort of ideological position that returning the Republican Party to Republicans. And so I think, at least what I'm picking up, that if Republicans in the state want to eliminate the petitioning process or want to keep it, it's up to the Republican voters and the Republican leadership, the leaders and officers, PCPs, all these people together as a party, rather than from the top down. Is that kind of what I'm picking up on from you?
Well, I just want to make clear, in the meantime, we have been told by our body that we are going through with the opt-out. So if we don't win the primary lawsuit in the meantime, close the primary lawsuit in the meantime, we will be doing an opt-out, and it will be up to us, correct?
Right. So you've got that particular lawsuit, which I have no idea when that's going to get resolved. The federal courts are slow to act.
Federal courts.
And then, so I guess we'll see, hopefully before the next presidential election.
Yeah.
That
if God is so good,
some way to address that. But the other point that the opposition makes is that they're concerned that you're going to upset the unaffiliated so much that they're going to vote Democrat. And to which I reply, they already vote 65% Democrat anyway. That's number one. And number two, if someone is going to be so petty as to not vote for a candidate that they like simply because the party decided to keep their own business in-house, this is the part that frustrates me, because people don't understand that the Republican Party, as well as the Democrat Party, are private organizations. People think wrongfully that they are public organizations, and they're not. It's like me going down to the Denver Country Club, walking in as a non-member and demanding to play golf.
You do that every Friday.
They would laugh me out of the building because I'm not a member. So why should we allow people who are not members of our club to voice their opinion as to how we're going to operate our club? It doesn't make any sense. So,
well, I will say, if we were to forecast, and let's just say we do successfully do the opt-out before the close of primary lawsuit is concluded, would it be sad if people went over and voted for the more moderate Democrat in any of these races, and political consultants were to enrich themselves from that? That would be a sad instance. The Democratic Party is getting more moderate.
We'd like to see that, honestly. It might help them win, unfortunately.
My point,
we don't want that.
It's possible.
My point is that the electorate is pretty much cast in stone. Okay, those that are have the propensity to vote conservative, if you will, are going to vote for the Republican candidates, and those that are more moderate or liberal, if you will, are going to vote for the Democrats. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and people don't understand why we're a private club and we have a right to select our own candidates for a general election. That's the whole argument in a nutshell.
I would say this, and this is part of leadership, though. We do want unaffiliated to come back to the party if they're conservative, right? If they hold with our values, and a lot of unaffiliated are conservative. So I think this will actually help those conservative unaffiliates come back to the party. One, because they'll have a greater voice in doing so. But we also need to work on messaging as to why our Republican principles reflect their values. I mean, your organization is really perfect for that. Colorado Hispanic Republicans is reaching out to Americans who should be Republicans based on their values. I love the stories where people are walking into some of these churches and putting a block over the name, or actually a block over their voting record, and showing a Hispanic legislator. And then saying, is this the person that represents you and your values? And taking that away and seeing what they're really voting for. More government, against family, against faith, against bigger government, more taxes. Does this really represent you? And they say, well, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So we need to take that message far and wide. There's a lot of people who should be joining our party, should be voting Republican, and should be joining us during that opt-out.
I very much appreciate that, actually, because as a young Hispanic, that actually was a very common thing for me, as I would see how Hispanic legislators were voting, and I would just feel almost ashamed. It's like, this isn't who we are.
Right.
And that actually goes to an interesting question, Lori. What experience do you have with Hispanic voters in Colorado? And as chair, what would be your interest or plan in engaging Hispanic Republican organizations and helping them get those Hispanic volunteers into the party and interested?
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked that. That's part of the plan.
Thank you.
Actually. So I've been talking to some folks on the radio, Spanish radio stations, that I think can repeat that message of freedom. And what does it mean to be a Republican? A lot of people don't actually know, right? I mean, they don't know what our party platform is because we don't vote that way at the State House. I mean,
unfortunately, so maybe that will change. Hey, for now, maybe that will.
Maybe
change
it will,
too.
but it's hard to tell. Between the voting between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party sometimes. So what does limited government mean, right? What is the role of government? Is it cradle to grave programs, or does that mean getting out of your way so you and your family can enjoy more prosperity, you can keep more of your own money to invest, to give to your churches, to give to charity, all those things that we as Americans believe in. And does that look like your government school ramming their ideology down your throat? There's a lot of things we can do, including giving vouchers for private schools and for homeschool, where we can teach our values, our American values, and not get indoctrinated by the government. So, there's a lot of ways to get that across, not only in our radio stations, but also visiting our Hispanic communities and churches, and again, carrying that message forward. Who is actually voting your values when it comes to our God and our country? Is it this party or is it this party? And when you can't tell the difference between the two, it's time to opt out.
I love that, actually. If I may just make one comment, as a Mexican, the reason that the connection between education and religion is so important is we actually had a war called the Cristero War, where the government tried to eliminate the churches and eliminate religion. And part of how they did that was through public education. Mm-hmm. So, but we still have the churches. That fight was won with great losses. And that's why we Mexicans, we love to shout, Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King.
Yes, very good. That's who it's about, too.
There you go. Very true. Back to you, Hugo.
And the thing that's been my battle cry, so to speak, for the last 2.5 decades, and that is that the Republican Party has failed, in my opinion, to attract Hispanic voters. And when you talk to the average Hispanic on the street, whether they be a worker, a business owner, or whatever, and you ask them why they don't align their conservative values with the Republican Party, they always pretty much reply that they don't feel welcome in the Republican Party. And that's a strong indictment against the Republican Party in Colorado. And I've said all along, you want to turn this state red, you attract those Hispanic voters that are conservatives, that looking for a home, but they also need to be welcomed with open arms. And we have failed as a party to do that. And until somebody understands that, we're not going to make any progress with those voters. And right now, as we speak, there are 300,000 eligible Hispanic voters who either don't vote or are not registered. So think about that pool of voters.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't make that effort to attract our share of those, we're just, barking up the wrong tree. We're treading water, so to speak. So I keep saying that, and then I get these replies from people, oh, well, we don't play identity politics. It's not identity politics. It's smart politics to attract people who are already conservative and align with our values to vote with our candidates.
It's meeting people where they're at.
That's just common sense.
That's exactly right. And back again to the PCP, right? You tend to look a little bit more like your neighbors, don't you? So back to training PCPs, but also I think Hispanics, especially in Colorado, are one of the most entrepreneurial people I've ever seen. And we need to be better at messaging what's going on. So one of the bills I testified on recently in the Senate was with Senator Rich. She actually had a bill to reduce regulations. What a shocker. It's basically a Doge bill, cutting out all these nasty programs that's gutting the oil and gas industry, that's making housing more expensive by requiring all this Green New Deal stuff to be put in your home. I mean, we need to make that very clear and repeat that message that Democrats are making your life less affordable and making it harder on your family to get ahead and your business to get ahead. We are one of the most regulated states in the nation when it comes to business regulations and property tax, and as far as business personal property tax, which is absolutely ridiculous, by the way. You're basically just taxing productivity, and when you tax productivity, you get less of it. What a concept!
Amazing how that works.
Amazing how that works, right?
I also don't want to do things when I lose money from it.
Right, exactly. So there's things that we need to make clear what we are for, exactly, and we're for them. We are for their prosperity. We are for their family values. So we need to make sure that we're getting that word out. And again, that comes neighbor to neighbor. That's, if you want to spread the gospel, it's also neighbor to neighbor, isn't it?
It very much is.
It's in proximity to the people you meet every single day in your job, in your neighborhood, and spreading that message. Like, we need to get behind the Republicans and turn this state around.
All right.
I love that. That's why, to all of our audience, never be afraid to talk to anybody and express your views. Bible commands that is to be ready always to give the reason of hope that is within you.
Yep.
That's right.
So we're coming up against the clock here, so I want to give you an opportunity to give a parting message to our audience and give us a reason to vote for you on March 29th, which happens to be my birthday, right?
Indeed, it is.
I believe we are going to have a birthday party for Hugo on the 29th.
Look at that, Hugo.
That sounds like it's very worthwhile. But just is imparting, if you want leadership that is lifting others up above yourself, right, to serve and not be served, I'm your candidate. I've got a proven voting record. It's very hard to vote the way I've done in the state house and as a county commissioner against higher taxes and against bigger government. I was not warmly received by both members of the house or the county commissioners for doing so, but I stuck to principle and I voted exactly the same way. I voted to return the power back to you. That's what those voting scores actually mean, is I voted to give power back to you by limiting government, reducing taxes, reducing the size of government, and increasing personal responsibility. The government is not there to take care of you for your entire life. That is your personal American responsibility. So I have that strong voting record. I have a great leadership record as a House caucus chair. I ran a lot of the budgets. I've raised a lot of money for the Republican Party as a caucus chair. I've also run a lot of those budget meetings in the multi-millions of dollars. I have done a lot of bills that were heavily opposed by the majority party, and I still managed to limit government. I'll give you two examples real quick before we say goodbye. But one of those was the original DOJ whistleblower bill. So I gave people within these state departments the ability to report waste, fraud, and abuse within their own departments. And as the chair of the Legislative Audit Committee, the instances of those being identified raised 900%. That's the difference in leadership.
Okay. Well, we want to wish you the best on the campaign trail. We'll see you tomorrow night at the Colorado Hispanic Republican Chairperson Forum,
which you all should attend. We will have a link of it in the description, and you could also find it at the Colorado Hispanic Republicans Facebook page. And we want to give a very pleasant, very warm Hispanic Patriot thank you to Rosie Saine for being with us tonight.
Thank you for coming on, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yes, great to meet you, ma'am.
Yes, we'll see you tomorrow.
Take care.
Adios. That was Rosie Saine, everybody.
Rosie Saine.
Two great women we've introduced so far, honestly.
Yep, we've had two good candidates.
And you will all be seeing more as we come along, because I believe, Hugo, we have another one coming up very soon.
Yeah, we've been asked to bring Darcy back on because she was darked out the last time. So we'll see if we can accommodate that. And
it's just Dark Darcy Rising. You know, but honestly, folks, I want to stress very clear. We at the Hispanic Patriot Podcast are neutral until the last bullet is fired. We want these candidates to show, because here's the thing. You need to give candidates every chance to be who they are and show you who they are, because you want to make that decision when you know, like I said, when the last round has been fired, when all the fighting has been done, when people have shown their true character. But we are lucky in Colorado right now that we have some wonderful candidates. It's going to be a hard decision.
Yeah, well, it'll be an interesting election, put it that way. But
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I want to see, first of all, who shows up and how they perform.
Well, we know that all of our viewers will be showing up tomorrow.
Yes.
And we will be very much happy to see all of you.
My understanding is that it will be live streamed somehow. So
it will be. I actually have information on that Adam Dorito is bringing his extra special Joe Rogan setup. And it will be very, very quality. Kino, as we kids say. You like that, Hugo?
Yeah.
Y'all like me introducing millennial and Gen Z terms to Hugo? Put in the comments what term you want me to explain to him next. Here we are, the Boomer and the Millennial, folks, building bridges.
I just say far out, man.
Hugo's got us beat, folks. He's got us beat on the slang, all right?
So, all right. So we're going to close out the show with a couple of topics that are making the rounds. Number one is, as we know, Zelensky, President Zelensky, was unceremoniously exited from the White House a couple of weeks ago. And I predicted then that it was just a matter of time before he would write or call and apologize. And indeed he did. And now there is a agreement on the table with Ukraine for a ceasefire, 30-day ceasefire, and that's a beginning. And my understanding now is that they're taking the same information to Putin and waiting to see if he's going to abide.
Yes, absolutely. That is correct. And I want to say, actually, for anybody, and I'm a Ukraine supporter myself, for anyone who's upset at the way that Trump handled Zelensky, you got to want him to be that way to Putin as well. He can't be one way to one person and then a completely different way to another. That's just not going to work. But you also have to be fair as a global mediator. You have to be diplomatic. You have to put the ball in the Russians' court. And if the Russians are going to keep kicking the ball to Ukraine, then it's going to be on Ukraine's.
The ball is literally in Russia's court right now.
That is what we were waiting for. That is honestly what Trump wanted out of Zelensky in that Oval Office meeting. This is the point where we're all trying to get to: is the ball in Russia's court. This is what will happen next. And if you don't like Russia, you can't have a very good feeling that they'll be able to serve that back.
Personally, I don't like either one. I don't
because
like
you are 100% America, Hugo. 100%
I don't like Zelensky
America.
and I don't like Putin, but I don't like people getting killed either. Just like the president said, innocent people are dying every single day. That has to end. And this is the beginning of a potential ceasefire. So if Putin is serious about ending the bloodshed, then he will agree to at least the 30-day ceasefire while they work out the details of a lasting peace. So we'll see how this plays out in the next few days. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of pressure on Putin, but we all know what kind of person Mr. Putin is. He is KGB after all, and so you can't really predict or trust what the guy says or does. So we'll see.
It's a real shame, actually, because a lot of people on the right wing, especially among young people, kind of saw him as a Francisco Franco, maybe a not necessarily like us, but helpful against China, like Franco was against the Soviets. But, at the end of the day, you can't trust somebody who has communist indoctrination. That never leaves you. Communism is a disease that is powered by human suffering. That's what you have to remember about communism. So one thing I want to give folks, let's give a quick prayer for freedom in Cuba and Venezuela. Let's do that real quick, because those are two countries that still suffer under communism. Russia may not be communist, still authoritarian, but there are still communist countries. Isn't that sick, Hugo, that there are still communist governments out in the world right now?
I saw
two of them are in Hispanic countries.
Funny that you bring up Cuba. I just saw a couple days ago where somebody proposed make Cuba the 51st state.
You know what? We almost did that several times. So you know what? I'm in for it. I'm in for it on this, honestly. Puerto Rico, Cuba, and then just let it not be communist. Hey, I don't see any downside there.
Yeah, well, there is some downside, but we'll have to see.
Well,
somebody brought up the Canadian situation and said, well, you know what? If we were to make Canada the 51st state, we'd probably end up with 2 more liberal senators. So,
that is the biggest problem now, isn't it? Is we'd inherit massive amounts of liberals, Yeah. And it depends. It's like, in Cuba, you inherit all these communists that you have to unbrainwash, That's not good. That sounds like a hassle.
But I'm ready to go take a cruise on the Gulf of America, though.
Oh, absolutely. Where no restrictions on drilling rights are existing.
Yep.
That was brilliant. Honestly, anyone in Mexico who's mad about that, enjoy your lower oil prices. Honestly, enjoy your global energy market, because we need to drill, baby, drill. It's about time. And that's another way, if anyone's interested, that we can hurt Russia and China. China does not have energy resources of its own. They get it all from Russia. We control that. We control everything. Just like World War II, folks, oil still runs the world, no matter what the environmentalists want to say about it.
And the other one is the fact that I just saw a chart yesterday that gas prices are down over 60 cents already.
And the price of eggs are coming down. The liberals were complaining about that. Oh, Trump, you've been in office for 12 seconds. Where's my 99-cent egg carton?
Oh, and our liberal. Oh, how can I forget? Rosie O'Donnell has moved to Ireland.
No, that's terrible. She's gonna cause another Irish famine by herself. That was ad lib, folks, by the way. I just made that up on the spot right there.
She says, it's just unsafe to be in the U.S.
So you'd rather be next to Britain, where they have Pakistani, pedophile gangs. All right, that's great,
And she
much
said,
better. I agree.
When she's trying to change her citizenship to Irish, and I guess she has Irish heritage, O'Donnell.
Oh yeah, that'll do it, right?
But I said, if you do change your citizenship, stay there. Don't ever come back here. We don't want you. All you're going to do is tip the scale here when you come back. So
hey, we got one less Democrat voter. You know what I mean? And for those offended that I say Pakistan, I will include India and whatever other country you want that had these gangs in it. All right, but just try to keep your hands off the kids, no matter where you come from. Even if you come from, especially if you come from here. Actually, we have that problem in Colorado right now. But Hugo, we actually are kind of dealing with these kind of problems right now. We definitely don't want to forget one of the major stories about whether or not somebody should remain in this country or not.
Yes. What was it? Mahmoud something or other?
I will look that up right now.
But anyway, this Columbia University grad student, I think he is.
Indeed.
Who has a student visa and a green card. And so ICE picked him up and charged him with conduct that violates his visa and his green card status. And so now they're trying to deport him and revoke his green card. And a lot of people don't understand that they can lose their green card after receiving it. That's not a that's not a free pass. That's not a something that's granted in perpetuity. If you violate our laws, if you align with terrorist groups like Hamas, who is on the terror watch list, and try to intimidate Jewish students, which is anti-Semitism, I don't care who you are. You can be deported, and I hope that this deportation serves as a warning to those who would perform like this guy was doing and putting out calls for violence and intimidating Jewish students and supporting a group like Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. So
absolutely. And we got to say there is a huge difference between supporting the people of Gaza and the people and Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Absolutely.
And I just find this kind of ridiculous that this says right here that their spokesperson says that, because this gentleman's married, and you're correct about his name. That would be, let's see here, Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil. It said, my husband was kidnapped from our home. No, your husband was arrested, ma'am. That's completely different. It's not kidnapped. These people are entitled. Let's just call it what it is. They're entitled to make political action in our country. I want to make something very clear. A green card is for education and work. We do not bring you into this country because we want to hear your political opinions. You have no ability to express your political opinion here through the voting box. So why do you feel the need to express your political opinion when you cannot influence anything beyond your own voice and your own words? Is that your purpose coming to this country? It is not.
I mean, I would say this, I don't mind people speaking up against injustices or whatever, but don't align with a terrorist group and then malign the university that opened their doors to you and intimidate Jewish students in the process. That's not American protesting.
No, we don't see a bunch of Israelis coming over here to dog on Arabs in random colleges. This is a coordinated effort. We also have to say the pro-Palestine movement is extremely well coordinated in the Western sphere. And oftentimes this Western coordination isn't even in concert with Palestine back in Palestine. So these people are really chanting for a cause that they're really barely doing anything to help. I will just say this. I would check his bank account. I'll bet you he's being paid by people like Soros and others to be agitators. And so, well, you know what they say, Hugo. And now I agree. If that's the case, 100%. If you're getting funded by foreign governments to do stuff here, forget you, honestly, because you really don't have a right to be here. But I couldn't agree more. We cannot have foreign agents in the country. That is the biggest thing. We cannot have foreign agents. Like we said, we want to have, you see this consistent ideology, folks. Republican Party should be for Republicans. America should be for the Americans. And guess what? Being an American is a special type of person, and not everybody is American. Oh, I do now. I had to tell everybody, But right. Hugo.
Well, I gotta go, guys. I gotta go to the meeting. So
that's true. Hugo, being an important person, he's got to get going.
we're going to say goodnight. Thank you for watching tonight. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, and throw us a few pennies if you have it in your.
Yes, you can see the donation link on our website.
Watch for next week, and we'll have another important guest next week.
Yes, you won't want to miss it, folks.
All right. We'll say goodnight, and God bless.